Okay, to all of you that are live streaming, we're happy to have you. And listen, this is proof positive that nobody can stop this show, not Franklin or anybody else he sends over. So it's going to be an excellent program. Anybody that's either here in presence or live streaming is going to benefit from a lot of useful information. Very, very important. So we are going to start out our program. I got to tell you, Omar, our conference coordinator, is just so wrong. It is 9:15 in the morning. He's going to start you off with, corporate structures. I mean, he could have started with something easier, But anyhow, it is my great pleasure to introduce a very experienced and excellent attorney specializing in civil matters. In practice for over 30 years, although looking at her, you can't tell that. And she's probably going to kill me for sharing that. But it goes to show what a good, regimen of night creams can do for you. Anyway, I'm going to welcome Elizabeth Silver Esquire, one of our favorite DR attorneys, to talk to you about the corporate structures. This is important because, whenever people want to come to the DR, it's like the US, an LLC. And how much do I need to, how much capital to register an LLC, and how long does it take, and what are the tax obligations annually if you have a company, and what are the requirements? Can a foreigner without status, register an LLC? So Elizabeth is going to be tackling this information, answering all of these questions. I just want to say to the live streamers, you can ask your questions for Elizabeth, because at the end of the presentation, she's going to allow 15 minutes for questions, okay? So if you guys, are listening to the presentation and something occurs to you, make sure that you post the question, okay? So without further ado, Elizabeth Silver.
Okay, hello. My name Elizabeth Silver. I'm a lawyer. Practicing law 30 years. Let's talk about how to register a company in the Dominican Republic and the different types of companies. The companies here are very important because have many uses here. The process. Okay, the process to register a company is not complicated. It is important that you know that there are different types of companies in the Dominican Republic, and the legislation immersed in the Commerce Code and in a special law, which is the General Law of Commercial Companies and Individual Companies Limited Liability, Law 479-08, amended by Law 31-11. How to start? It is important about the name. The name of the company is directly related to the object of your company. It is important that you at least have two options or maybe more, and the name must be distinctive. That is, it is identified with the object of the company, because the ONAPI, that is the institution that allow or not the name that you want to register, can object it, and it only has one opportunity to submit it again without additional cost. Once this part is covered without further objections, you will be provided with your trade name certificate. That is the first step. You will have your name certificate.
So just so that you guys understand, the first step is to select a name. So usually when you're going to register a company, your attorney is going to ask you to provide a possibility of 3 names, okay? Now when it says the name has to be distinctive, the Dominican Republic is shying away from people using generic names. Like, let's say Dominican Tour. That's too generic. So they're leaning toward names being distinctive. That's why a lot of times you will see a company that says Dominican Tours SRL, but then in the paperwork, it's a different name. Because for purposes of registering the name, it has to be distinctive. And the reason they do this is because if there's a legal problem, they gotta know who to come after. Mm-hmm. So if you have 10 Dominican Tours, who do you sue? So just wanted to give you a little bit of background on why ONAPI, which is the name the entity that registers, approves and registers, trademarks the name, that's a requirement. So you're always going to be asked, provide a selection of names. Now, they may deny all three. And Elizabeth is explaining that you have one more chance, free of cost, to submit another 3 names. And after that, you're paying it all over again.
Yes, that is the first step. But there's a thing, because I'm a litigation lawyer, and some problems that you should have. When you register your name, maybe you send a messenger there, any person to register, or maybe other of the partners. It's important if you are the main partner of the company that you register your name by your name. You know, because maybe if you have any problem with other partner, there can be a deal with that. You know, mm-hmm. That is important that it have to be clear. Okay, you will need for this the activity to which the company will be dedicated. 2 electoral identity card or passport. 3 physical address, 4 email, 5 telephone contacts, 6 complete the form for this purpose. 7, you can pay it by credit card. This is online. This part is done online. This is the address.
So notice, if you don't have status, a foreigner using a passport qualifies to register a company. So your passport takes the place of the Dominican identity card. So you do not need legal status in the country in order to register a company. We'll do questions at the end. So just so that you know that. Now, one thing I wanted to warn, I'm trying to, no problem. She threatened me to do this, right? She says, you better talk with her. And we've been friends a long time, and she represents the firm, so I gotta do what she says. Anyway, but one of the things you have to keep in mind, there are foreigners who have a tendency to overstay in the country because they say, I can pay an exit fee. And in the meantime, I can use my passport for everything. Why do you think that these institutions request a copy of the passport? You don't need legal status to get a company, but you can't be here irregularly. So if they see that you have overstayed, guess what you're not going to be doing this for you? That's right. You ain't registering a company or setting up a bank account or doing anything else. So later on, I'm going to get into that, but this is something I wanted to mention for foreigners. If you've been in the country for long and you don't have status, just make sure that you either extended your stay legally or you leave and come back before you do this process.
Yes. Okay, you got your certificate of your company name. Now the second step is register the legal documents in the corresponding Chamber of Commerce and Production once you have the approved trade name certificate. The next step to constitute a company in the Dominican Republic is to prepare the corporate bylaws, which will be the internal law of the company. This is important. This will be the internal law of the company. And other documents such as an assembly, an act, and the list of the shareholders present. For this, you need the advice of a law professional. Sometimes a person copy other company, copy other internal law of other company, and this is a big mistake because this is a kind of dress of your own. You know, a company have a a need to have their internal law, because everything is specific for each company. You know what I mean?
So we're talking about the corporate bylaws, the operating agreement. Okay, this becomes the company's fingerprint. Okay, because it outlines not only what the company will be dedicating to doing, but who is assigned to what. So that's very important. And Elizabeth was explaining that the only way to change that, once you register a company, is by filing an assembly with the Chamber of Commerce. That's that. Once a company is registered, that is the way you file for changes, through assemblies, right?
Yes. You have to explain to the lawyer all that you need in your company, all that you want to allow, everything about it. Once you have those documents ready, then you will be in condition for registration in the Chamber of Commerce and Production, and they will give you your commercial registered certificate. You will need to make the payment of the corresponding tax for incorporation of companies, 1% of the company's capital, in the General Directorate of Internal Taxes. Said payment can also be made through internet banking or of the main bank of the country. Copies of certificate and or passport of the shareholders of the company. Company bylaws, meeting minutes and payroll of presence signed by the partners in the original and copies. Fill out the commercial registration format, the chambers of commerce corresponding to the company's domicile. If the company is in La Vega, it has to be registered at the Chamber of Commerce of La Vega. If the company is in Santo Domingo, the domicile is the domicile of, the address of the company is in Santo Domingo. You have to register the company in Santo Domingo. Third step, request the National Taxpayer Register, RNC, in the General Directorate of Internal Taxes. Once you have approved the commercial registry certificate, then you can continue with the last step to create a company in the Dominican Republic. This is about making the National Taxpayer Register application, RNC. This service does not have any cost. This is like what the ID is in the case of individuals. Like cédula, in the case of companies, their ID is the National Taxpayer Register, RNC. The RNC is like a cédula for individual person. Each company, the identifying number is RNC. You will need for this National Taxpayer Registry Form, RMC, copy of the commercial name registration, 3, copy of the commercial registry, 4, copy registered in the Chamber of Commerce of the corporate status, payroll of present and act of incorporation. All the documents that you deposit at the Chambers of Commerce and Production, you have to deposit all the documents at the tax office, Now we're going to talk about the different types of companies in the Dominican Republic. The most common companies. We're going to talk about the most common companies for being more practical and used. Limited liability company, SRL, is the company liability is limited to the capital that corresponds to you. That is, if debts are contract, they will not respond with the individual equity of the members. Partners must be minimum 2 and maximum 50. Okay, this kind of company is very practical here. Many people use that. The minimum of partners are 2. And the thing of the company here in the DR, why people use? Because At first, for many people, protects their own properties. If you make a company and you have any debts, only the debts is not going to affect your own properties. The companies protect you about any demand, any sue. Okay? It are very important. Many very rich people use that.
It's asset protection.
Yes.
So basically, if a lawsuit is brought against the company, you're not allowed to go after their individual assets. A little different from the U.S.
Yes.
Because excess liability exists. So here, if you sue the company, you cannot go beyond that and go after their personal assets. So they will either, put assets in the name of a company, which later we have to discuss whether that's practical or not, because it may or it may not be, depending on your personal circumstance. But it is something that the very wealthy use as a way to protect. And they will have several entities, okay? So if for instance, we're talking about a developer, each development is its own company. So if a suit is brought against that company, they cannot come after the other companies or after their personal assets. And one thing I wanted to clarify about the individually owned company that she talked about, the EIRL, gotta keep an eye on that. Because even though, the capital to register that company is very low, and you can operate it as a sole owner, if you make over a certain amount, your taxes are now prorated. That means you're going to be paying that. Even before you make your tax, even before you file for taxes, they prorate it. And we don't get refunds in this country, we get credits. So, I know I told that to somebody yesterday and they upchucked their dinner. They were like, what? So that's exactly how that works. So if you're going to have a company that's going to generate over 50, 60 grand, you got to think about it. You might want to do an LLC as opposed to an EIRL. Because then, as an individual, it obligates you to a higher tax bracket. Sorry. I'm doing what you said. I'm doing what she said. She told me you better help me out.
Yes, I need it.
You're doing fine.
Okay. Another thing, Maria, is that all the expenses the person included in the company, and it's better for when it's they have to pay taxes. The expenses is putting a part of the declarations. Mm-hmm. It's important. The individual limited liability company, EIRL, unlike the other types of companies, is in this class only one may constitute the company or companies. If you don't have other partner, you can constitute a company, and this is protect you in the same way as I explained. Simplified limited companies is the commercial company. The partners are responsible up to the amount of their respective contributions. In addition, they may issue shares and other transferable titles. Is an important company. You can the maximum partners is unlimited. Okay.
So in this type of structure, you have to prove your contribution, and that's going to equal the amount of shares you have. So, for instance, if Elizabeth and I wanted to constitute a company, we could just say, okay, 50-50. That's it. We're going to do 50-50, and that's how we're going to register the company. In an SAS, you have to actually give proof that you contributed 50%. And that could be monetarily speaking, from a monetary aspect, or through the title of a property. or some asset equaling the amount of shares that you have in the company. And if that contribution disappears, so do your shares.
Yes, other details about this in SRL, the first one we were explaining, is that the minimum that you can, the capital is 100,000. In EIRL, there's no minimum and maximum, there's no, but in SAS, the minimum is 3 million pesos.
Yes.
3 million pesos. Okay, for considering the kind of company.
Yeah. So with this type of company, usually it's for bigger corporations. Because the minimum is 3 million pesos, which right now at the conversion rate, don't make me do this. Oh, it's the conversion rate for 3 million pesos. Oh, go ahead. See, I have a whole bunch of assistants. Bart is quiet, but we gotta give him a mic. 53,500 is the minimum for an SAS, okay? And as I said, the shares are distributed according to your monetary contribution or whatever your asset is. Different from an SRL, which is 100,000 pesos, which I think is what, $1,700? Yeah, with $1,700, that's the capital.
Very good. Okay, other types of company, not more common, but other types. Companies in collective name. It is an external company that is in charge of performing commercial or civil functions under a unified company name, responding to the partners for debts that could not be covered with the share capital. The partners support each other here. This is very delicate. This means that if for some reason the company's own equity is not sufficient to cover all the debts, the partners must respond with their own money or equity to pay the outstanding debts to their creditors. In this type of company, there may be partners who provide their works instead of capital, and they are known as industrial partners.
Right. So in this particular case, there are two ways to contribute. You either contribute monetarily or you contribute work-wise. Okay? So that happens a lot in the case of the type of companies where, you have one person who funds it and then all the work is being done by the expert. So they have a partnership, but their contributions are different. One is quantifiable by money or, liquid assets, and the other one is quantifiable by the work that they do. And so when that company is registered, that agreement is placed in the registry documents, in the documents in the operations, right? The operation agreement. So that's what that company is for. So now the partners, as it says, they function in a unified way. It's a synergy. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a synergetic thing to get it working. So one puts money, one puts talent.
That's right. The other kind is simple limited partnerships. This is a personal list type commercial company. In this company, there are two types of partners. General partners who have unlimited liability for the company debts and also participate in the management of the company. Limited partners, which unlike others, have zero participation in the management and their liability is limited to the capital or committed partnership. It's similar to the other one, but there's two kinds of partners here. Limited partnerships by shares, it is a company made up by one or several limited partners in the capacity of commercials who are indefinitely and severally liable for partnership debts. On the other hand, there are also limited partners and shareholders who will only assume the losses and they correspond to the value of their respective contributions. That's why it's important to study what you want in a company, to explain to the lawyer what specifically you need to protect. But there's many uses. There's many persons that have sons, daughter, rich person, make a company for each son and put a property there for this son. I'm going to protect this for my son. This is the company of my son. There's many uses, like I tell you, and this is very important in DR because there's many ways to protect your own work. You know, your own properties, and there are many uses. That is important. That's why important the advice. To say what I need. There's many people that say you can make your own company. No, that's false at all. At all. You need advice for this because you're gonna put your capital here and you have to protect it. You know?
And see, and one thing I wanted to say, this is the importance of sitting down to a consultation because you may not be clear about what you need or want. You may not be clear about that at all. So once you explain to the attorney what it is you're looking to do, what your concern is. She mentioned something. I want to protect my assets. I want to, have this property for each child and know that it can't be affected by anything else. So once you get to the bottom of what it is that you want, the attorney knows which of these structures suits you. You understand? And so even though the majority of the people do LLCs, because we're with us, depending, I do have people that I have several partners. We want to do a company, we want to do a project. That changes now. It's not that you can't have an LLC, but the structure might vary. So this is why you have to be clear, as Elizabeth said, what do you want? What's the concern? Okay, guys?
Very good, very good. And this is the certificate of the name of a company. This is an example. As you can see, this is the name of the company, Vanessa Travel. It has, this is, he lives in Punta Cana. The address of this company is belong to Provincia de Altagracia, Higüey. And this is have the address of the company and the name. This has a date that cancellation, and you have to be careful about this because anyone can register that name when if you don't check the date of issue and when it's finished. This is very important. This is the certificate of the Chamber of Commerce about your name, the name of the company and about the object of the company. And this is the RNC number that the tax office gives you to begin with your company, to work with the company.
Once you register a company, folks, anything you want to do with that company, set up an account.
If you want to open an account, all of these documents they're going to require to you. It is important that you have everything ready. And be careful with what I explain to you about the name. Maria, I was explaining to them that it is very delicate if the name have 5 years. I mean about the official name. Because other people can register your own name.
Yes, that's right. You have to be careful because it expires. So if you don't renew it, your name is up for grabs. Okay? So having a company means being on top of a lot of things because, the merchant certificate has to be renewed every 2 years. Every 5 years you have to make sure that you stay on top of, the ONAPI for the name trademark. So that's important.
I remember when, and then they have to need a annual. They have to declare about taxes every year. It is important. They have a accountant that can explain you everything and advise you about the taxes.
Absolutely. You know, if you register a company, next step, a good accountant. Because even if it's just a holding company, and this is the popular question, the holding company is not really producing anything, but you still have to pay maintenance taxes to the government. It's not a lot. It's not a lot, but if you put that property in the name of that company, remember what we said about the taxes? About the capital? The company absorbs the worth of that property into its capital, and that's what you're paying tax for. So a good accountant, folks, besides a good lawyer, next step, a good accountant.
Good accountant can advise you about everything, and every move that you're going to do, you need the advice of the accountant. Do that always when you're going to buy a property, you're going to sell property, anything that you're going to do, the accountant is going to advise to you, and the lawyer too, how to do it, and about the taxes and about everything. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
Gracias. I just wanted a little clarification on the last part. You said that if you don't file for renewal of your name, you could lose it. Now, is that in reference to a trademark or a company registration name? Because they're two different things.
Company registration name.
Okay.
Because not everybody trademarks.
All right, exactly.
Okay.
So there's no grace period. There's no.
No. But the company registry name, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's very different.
It is. And I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah.
I want everybody to pay close attention to what she said. That's very different. You have come to this conference because you want to learn how things are in the Dominican Republic, folks. You want to learn the laws that apply here. So you cannot come with the mentality to invest or to live here, but that's not the way they do it in the States. But you're not in the States. Uh-oh. I knew Alexis was going to be wrong.
So one of the very first slides talks about having an address here, your company address, a physical address. Is that, for example, a storefront, or is it just a mailing address, right? So
the idea is for it to be a mailing address. But I'm going to give you a quick suggestion that we do. There are these, what you would call these virtual spaces, and for like $70, they provide you a number, they provide you an address where you could receive mail in case you got to be served with something, you know. That is very similar to the States.
okay, that's what I was
So
going to
we can help people to set that up, which you do it like in a day or two, and then that becomes the company's, esos espacios virtuales. Se pueden utilizar como la dirección. Claro que sí.
Aunque sí, la dirección con relación a donde está ubicado depende para registrar la compañía.
Oh yes, that's it. The address that you provide is jurisdiction. So if I do something in Higüey, that is the office I will have to deal with. You understand? So the address determines jurisdiction. So if you're going to be working out of the capital, got to get an address in the capital.
And if you have a sue, is anyway, he's going to know that the court belongs to Iwe. You know, that's why the address is very important.
Yes.
The physical address.
That's more favorable than others.
Always. Always.
Where is going to be established? You know.
Anyone else?
You mentioned lawsuits if somebody wants to possibly sue your business. In the States, we have business insurance, liability, things like that. here in the Dominican Republic, do you guys have business insurance for your business
Yes.
as like an added layer?
Yes, and we have an insurance carrier, La General de Seguros, that's going to be coming to talk about liability insurance. So yes, yes, you do.
And one more, trust. Is that something that's offered in the DR? Is having a trust as well as, because you can have multiple companies, but you can put it
Fideicomiso.
inside your trust.
Habla de los fideicomisos. Yeah. Yeah, we do trusts, and you can also register a foreign trust here. Yeah. Anyone else?
We have a question from the stream. What's the process of buying a business that went into bankruptcy?
Ah, ok. Una empresa que declaró bancarrota.
This have a other kind of treatment because here if any have a bankrupt have to be authorized by the prosecutor of the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
That needs the authorization to continue working.
Yes. So it has to go through the Procuraduría, which is kind of like the the Attorney General's office, to get authorization to be able to continue functioning after filing for bankruptcy. I also wanted to mention something that's very common so you guys don't get scared. There are shell companies that are sold to foreigners. For example, you have people that just have a whole bunch of companies that they've registered, just simple companies. And if a person wants to buy the company, instead of starting from scratch, what they do is that, as Elizabeth mentioned, they file an assembly stating that the ownership or the shares of that company has been transferred to someone else. Now they do that because registering a company could take about 20, 30 business days. So if somebody wants a company quickly, there are, offices, firms that have, their companies, their shell companies done that they could just easily transfer, and that's completely legal. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that doing the footwork, o sea, el que tiene cartera de empresa para transferirle al que quiere comprar. That's a very common practice here, okay? But as Elizabeth mentioned, any change of that nature, you don't re-register the documents of incorporation. You take an assembly and you file it with the Chamber of Commerce, indicating the change. So those documents of incorporation will always be attached to that company. Any change is just going to be assemblies. And so any transaction you want to do with that company, they're going to ask you la última acta de asamblea, the last assembly that was filed. That's, you have banks, you have everyone asking for that. And that's because that's the way you file for changes. So they want to see the updated operating agreement of the company. They're going to ask for the latest assembly. All right? And ideally, even if there's no change in a company, you should file one annually. Most people don't do it, but that would be the ideal scenario. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was trying to get clarity on the one about there's a certain amount that 3 million, like after you become a big size company with the 3 million pesos. Can you provide clarity on that again?
The SAS?
Yeah, is that as you get bigger, you said?
Yeah, in other words, the minimum to register that company is 3 million pesos. That's the minimum. So if in the case of the EIRL or the SRL, you don't have, well, the SRL, the minimum is 100,000 pesos, 1,700 US. The EIRL, there is no limit. The SAS, there are limits. In other words, there's a minimum of $53,000. And then the shares are distributed according to your contribution. So if your monetary contribution or the amount of assets you contributed comes up to 25%, that is the amount of shares that you get. Okay? Oh, yeah. No worries. Any other questions? Oh, yes. If you own a foreign corporation and you want to register a branch here, you can. Now later on, we have a tax attorney that's going to be talking about, corporate structures in the U.S. and here, in comparison to here. So see, we bring you the full Monty, guys. It's not just what happens here, but for those of you who are still in the U.S., what can you do to ease off some of the pressure? You okay, Bart? He's looking intently at Lily. I'm gonna ask you what she said later. You probably won't even remember. All right.
One last question. Are you required as, maybe I'll wait till the tax attorney, when you register your business here in the Dominican Republic, do you have to register it also?
No.
Good.
That's a personal choice. But anyway, any other questions? Listen, guys, how well did Lily do? She never wants to do any presentation because she feels bad about her English. She did fine. She did fine. Now let me just tell you, you see how sweet she looks? You see? How sweet does Lily look? She looks sweet, doesn't she? All friendly and everything. She is the meanest litigator you ever saw. I mean, your hairs will stand on end if you saw this woman in court. Okay? I'm like, this woman gets possessed Damien and Carrie style. I'm telling you right now. Do not ever see her in court because you won't come see her here. Like, I ain't going near that. Not until she goes to a church or something. But anyway, her hat changes. Well, thank you, Lily. That was very good.